The CS Professor Kindiki is accompanied by senior officials within the ministry. As you're all aware, the ministry has 3 state departments. There is a State Department for Internal Security and National Administration, the State Department for Correctional Services, and the State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services. Welcome, Waziri.
Thank you, PS Dr. Raymond Omolo. I thought you would introduce the senior officers here, but I can do it on your behalf. Of course, you know Raymond is our PS for Internal Security and National Administration. Then we have Professor Bitok, the PS for Immigration and Citizen Services. At the moment, we are waiting for a deployment for us, a PS for Correctional Services, due to the changes that were done in government about a week ago. But I also have service commanders here with me, the Deputy Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service, Douglas Kanja, the Commissioner General of Kenya Prisons Service, retired Brigadier John Warioba, and we have other senior officers. I've seen the Principal Administrative Secretary, Njega, and the Principal Administrative Secretary for the National Police Service, who is also the accounting officer, Banis Sialal. Good afternoon, and it's good to see all of you. On Saturday was my 6th month in office since I was appointed on 27th of October 2022. Let me start by saying it's a great honor for me to serve as our country's Minister for the Interior and National Administration. Those 6 months have been a journey like no other. Yet, as I have said, it's a great honor and privilege. And I want to thank the President for that responsibility is bestowed on me. 100 days after I was appointed, I did make an accountability statement on behalf of all my colleagues in this ministry on what by that time we were doing and thinking and planning about improving our security as a country. And I promised on that day, which was 6th of February, that every so often we will have a chance like this, 3-4 months, to again brief the public where we are. One, it's a good practice for public officials to be accountable to the people, even without being summoned by accountability organs. It's also good for us to get feedback once we review what we are doing, to get feedback on what we could do better. So this is our second public accountability statement as Ministry of Interior and National Administration, representing all the state departments and the semi-autonomous government agencies under the ministry. Time will not allow us to account for each and every of the programs and activities that we have been running. So suffice it to say, this is just a broad overview of the journey we have traveled since we last met here on 6th of February, 2023. What have been our achievements, if you ask us? Number one, during the period under review, we have completed an assessment of our country's key national security threats. We've been able to scan and map and prioritize the priorities we have if we have to move Kenya to the League of Safe Countries in the world, because that is our target. We want to make Kenya safe. And for that to happen, there are things that must be done, including reducing the incidents of crime, but also building public trust and confidence in the organs of national security as we go along. So we thought, between February and now, we thought it's important for us to look at the risks and threats that we continue to face as a country and give them priority. And once we've finished that assessment, and it was carefully done with the support of experts and stakeholders, we have been able to conclude that among the security challenges we have 5 major priority national security priorities or national security issues that we would like the people of Kenya to know what we have been doing about in the last 3 months. Within that list, as I said in February, for us, the fight against terror remains the #1 existential threat to our country's stability. I am happy to report with a lot of confidence that our agencies responsible for our internal, in collaboration with and with the support of the Kenya Defence Forces at the borders and beyond our borders, have been able to keep the threat of terror away from our territory, as has been the case before. It has costed us huge sacrifices in terms of our officers and our vigilance, but I am happy to report that we remain on top of that war. We remain extremely vigilant, even as other national security threats emerge. We remain focused to ensure that our country does not provide a room for evil people, terrorists, to hurt us the way they have hurt us in the past in this country. Many of our successes are never reported for obvious reasons, but I can say this without any fear of contradiction, that we have been able to detect and deter attempts to hurt our country by terrorists. And I'm very proud of our security forces, especially those that are involved in counter-terrorism measures, for remaining focused, professional, patriotic, and delivering the results that we are all seeing. I have been at the most affected areas severally. I have engaged with the officers. We want to continue to provide leadership, all of us, together with my colleagues here, to all our officers engaged in counterterrorism, to commend them when they do a good job, to assist them, to give them moral support, to make sure that our country remains a safe country for all of us. Other than that, in terms of priority, about 13 counties in our country have experienced many decades of disorder through or perpetuated by a culture of numerous illegal arms in the hands of criminals who have been using these arms to steal livestock and to perpetuate the primitive culture of banditry. I am happy to report that during the period under review, we have made sustained gains in our war against bandits and the terror that they have posed on our people. I am happy to report that this is the first time that the National Police Service is in a joint operation with the Kenya Defence Forces of our country in an operation that is led by the National Police Service with the assistance of the Kenya Defence Forces in accordance with Article 241, 3B of the Constitution. And of course, the Kenya Defence Forces Act, Section 31 and 34. I am happy to report to the country that we have made great strides in the war against banditry, and we deliberately decided that although we know this is a war that is going to take us quite a bit of time, we must first silence the guns in the north of our country and make sure that there is law and order so that we can look at the long-term solutions to this age-old problem. I want to commend the patriotic work done by officers of the National Police Service and the Kenya Defence Forces in Northern Rift Valley, in the areas where the operation Maliza Uhalifu is ongoing. I have been there numerous times. I have seen the sacrifices that they continue to make every day to make sure that we keep bandits at bay. And this is a good lesson of how the organs of internal security can cooperate with organs of our defense for stabilizing and making sure that our country provides a safe environment for us and our children. And therefore grateful also to the other agencies who are working closely with the security agencies, including national government administration officers and all the teams that have delivered what I consider significant successes in the fight against bandits. I did promise sometimes last year, just a few weeks after I was appointed, that the Kenya Kwanza administration is going to be the administration that will completely obliterate bandits from Kenya and make them part of our history. This problem of livestock, rustling, and banditry will come to an end. I also said, and I do reaffirm those words today, that 2023 is the year where, as a country, we are going to make the turning point in the fight against the primitive, barbaric, and murderous behavior of cattle rustling. For a long time, these criminals have been using some spaces within parts of our country which are difficult terrain spaces, inaccessible, and generally uninhabited. It has, over the years, it became very difficult for security agencies to mop bandits from these places. And when I made the orders that we made on 12th of March at the Malasso escarpment, we did gazette certain areas as disturbed and dangerous and requested the public, if there was at all any member of a law-abiding member of the public, to vacate those places. We were not speaking to bandits, we were speaking to any member of the public who could have been in those spaces. And because of the culture of impunity, many of these bandits thought we were playing games. And some of members of the public whom we suspect could have been family members of these criminals heeded the 24-hour notice, and therefore we did promise that any Kenyan who was legitimately affected as a result of the movement will be resettled. And therefore, in our next phase, we're going to look at if any genuine cases of displacement were caused. Our assessment is that there wasn't any displacement, because for those who have gone to these places, these are places which are not even suitable for habitation in the first place. And that's why if you hear a place where security agencies cannot be able to access, then you can imagine the kind of places we are talking about. Some are forests, like Mukogodo Forest in Laikipia. What would someone be doing living in a government forest? Others are dangerous gorges and hills. The Araba Hills in Baringo, the Tandare Valley, the Silale Gorges in Tiati. Other dangerous escarpments, like the Malaso escarpment. You just need to go and see, the kind of terrain we are talking about. All these spaces, I am a proud Kenyan today to report that we have flushed out our criminals from all the areas that we gazetted as disturbed and dangerous. Some of the criminals escaped into the general population and mixed with the general population, and that's why we have had occasional sporadic attacks here and there, livestock stolen here and there, which thefts are not even happening in the grazing areas as used to be in the past, but is happening from homesteads. And we all know that police officers, law enforcement officers cannot be in every homestead. But I also want to report that whenever there have been attacks, we have made significant strides in recovery of stolen livestock. 2 weeks ago, I was in Laikipia North to celebrate our officers there who were able to recover within 12 hours a whole, about 76 heads of cattle which had been stolen in that part with no casualties, and on the side of our officers. And we have had many other instances of recovered livestock. We still have a number of livestock which have been stolen during the period under review, which we are still tracking, because what the criminals do is when the livestock is stolen, they divide it into small numbers and scatter in different directions. But we are tracking them. I've been to Samburu, I think 8 days ago or thereabout, and there was an incident there, and we have recovered a significant portion of the herd which was stolen there of goat and sheep. So generally, we are on top of things. Going forward, we will dominate the spaces that I have said. We have completely flushed out bandits from them. We will make sure they will never access those areas ever again, whether there is drought or not, because sometimes they venture into those places in the pretext that that's the only place they can get pasture. We will deal with the problem of pasture differently, but we will never again allow any criminal to access those places. In fact, the government has decided to turn these places into facilities for presence, training, and operations of our organs of national security, both the police, the military, but also other security agencies. Because it's only by dominating the hideouts for bandits that you are able to stifle them from the lifeblood which has sustained their activity for so many decades. We are also upscaling our disarmament program. We have recovered slightly under 200 firearms from the North Rift. But we believe there are thousands of illegal firearms in that region. And we have restrained ourselves from forceful disarmament for a while, for strategic reasons. But I want to make it clear that any person in Kenya holding an illegal firearm must surrender that firearm to government voluntarily, or we shall recover it by use of force. No excuse will be given whatsoever, including that those firearms are used for grazing livestock. You don't need a firearm to graze livestock, you need a stick, a huntsman's stick to graze livestock. Therefore, all people who have firearms which are not lawful must surrender them voluntarily, or we will get them by force. And we will get them. I want to commend particularly Samburu County. It is leading in the number of recovered illegal arms. And I want to congratulate the officers there and the leaders for supporting this government effort. But even the places where we've not recorded much surrender will acquire those weapons. It's just a matter of time. We will venture going forward to long-term solutions to northern Kenya and northern Rift Valley, because the permanent solution is to provide water points for animals to avoid unnecessary migration. But we are also going to open up the north of our country with infrastructure development and social amenities, roads, hospitals, water projects. And it's no longer a development issue, it's a security issue. So already a master plan for that region has been concluded, and we'll roll it out. It's going to take a bit of time, but we are going to mobilize resources from within and without government to transform the north of our country once and for all. I have said before when I appeared before Parliament, the future economic stability of this country lies in us securitizing large tracts of our country that remain unsafe, and therefore they cannot attract local and foreign investments. And many of our people, the huge number of our population, is struggling in a very small space of our country, yet we have a huge country which remains with untapped potential because of insecurity. So we are going to roll out in our next public accountability statement, we will say the initial steps. Some of them we have started taking already. In this regard, we will utilize the labor, expertise, and equipments of our security agencies, including the National Youth Service, to reconstruct our country and to provide for livelihood support and resilience for our communities in the northern part of our country as part of making sure the place remains safe and secure for local and foreign investments. That's where we are. During the period under review, we have also been able to initiate war on our number 3 priority national security threat, which is the trade, manufacture, use, and abuse of illicit and toxic alcoholic drinks, narcotics, psychotropic substances, and the engagement in other organized crimes. We have already done 2 regional forums. We will continue with other forums in Upper Eastern, at the coast, in Western, in Nyanza, every part of our country. The problem of toxic alcoholic drinks that are being manufactured and sold to our young people with detrimental consequences looks like a social problem. It's not a social problem. It's a very serious national security problem. And if we are not careful, when all the adults today are gone from this country, we will not have a country to hand over to the next generation. And therefore, those who are engaged in the manufacture, sale, distribution of toxic and chemical-laced dangerous drinks, drugs of all types, your time in business in Kenya is over. We will fight with you with the same energy, clarity, focus, and make sure that we get you out of our country and you either look for something else to do, or we will get you something else to do, whatever that is. So again, that is something we've just initiated, and therefore maybe in the next accountability statement I'll be reporting progress, because we must win that war. The fourth major national security matter in our assessment is the rise in violent extremism in several fronts. Number one, religious extremism. And I think the Shakahola example will just illustrate best that we have a problem in this country which we regard as a religious problem, a social issue, but it's not. It's an existential threat to our country. We are still in Shakahola, and I am afraid we have more mass graves in Shakahola, which are not opened. We'll start opening those graves on Monday, once the current phase of postmortems of the last cohort of bodies is concluded at the end of the week. We are also going to take new measures which are announced from that space, which has almost become my second office. Next week, I'll be back there. But the kind of damage Shakahola has done on Kenya, if we do not remedy and deal with this problem head on, this is the kind of threat that can hurt the country in the scale and manner in which some countries have been hurt. Our good neighbor Rwanda is an example of what happened in that country because of ethnic fundamentalism. Now that is religious extremism. We are also witnessing cultural extremism, mainly in central Kenya and parts of Upper Eastern. In Upper Eastern, the cultural extremism and Northern Rift Valley, the cultural extremism is in the perpetuating of some of the crimes we are fighting in that area, including cattle rustling. There is a cultural extremism component that we must tackle. In central Kenya, we have seen during the period under review a reemergence of cultural extremism by groups which are proscribed under the law of Kenya and which some people would like to revive. We saw them chanting the other day outside the DCI when we arrested a suspect. And you can see the courage, the demeanor, the impunity of these criminals. I spoke on Sunday. I would like to repeat for purposes of clarity. Any person who thinks that we can go back to the years when terror groups hiding behind culture raped our women and our children, as well as extorted money from business people, that person is dead wrong. could be recruiting unsuspecting youths to take part or to join prescribed organizations are enemies of Kenya. And for the sake of Kenya, we have to come for you, and we'll get rid of, so that you go where criminals go. Criminals are supposed to be in prison, and I'm the Minister for Prisons. As much as I want to decongest prisons, but at the same time, I have room for dangerous criminals, like the people recruiting our young boys, giving them hard drugs and cheating them, that they can fight security agencies, extort money, kill people, and commit sexual violence against the women and girls of Kenya. So there is a cultural extremism, and then religious extremism, and non-religious extremism. No amount of resistance will arrest our resolve to make sure that Shakahola never happens again on the soil of Kenya. No amount of resistance, not even by going to court and getting injunctions and having suspects freed on bail. We will use whatever method feasible as a country, because it is a shame for us collectively as a country that Shakahola happened. By allowing Shakahola to pass like that, we would have failed future generations. And therefore, all those priests, pastors, monks, rabbis, other religious people who could be involved in criminal activities and are hiding behind the Holy Scriptures, that the use of Holy Scriptures will not save you from the jaws of justice. We are done with Mackenzie and his perpetrators. We will have you as the next example. And I can report we are actively investigating a number of extremists, leaders of groups purporting to be religious groups, but who are engaging in serious crimes against humanity, including sexual violence, slavery, torture, and inhumane and degrading treatment. No religion, no scripture, no legal provision will save you from accountability and justice. We will not fear you because you are invoking the name of God. We are all human, and we all know God in our own ways. So we are not going to allow you perpetuate crimes and hide behind scripture. And fundamentalism and extremism is not a reserve of a particular religion. All criminals hiding behind religion, your time for business in Kenya is over. Look for another business. People manipulating believers and faithfuls, robbing them their property, indoctrinating them, radicalizing them. And when we ask questions, they wave some doctrine. As you're aware, we have established a task force, and the Commission of Inquiry has been established. Those are some of the accountability mechanisms that will help us, but we are actively investigating And we are zeroing in on a number of other Mackenzie-like people before they cause us harm. The harm levels will be less, but the direction they are taking is the Mackenzie-Shakahola route. Finally, in terms of national security threats, is the rise of violent resolution of political, economic, and social disputes in our country. Let me start with politics. In recent months, although it has been a problem for a long time, politicians who have political grievances want to incite the public and use the constitutional provisions that are so clear and unambiguous. They use those provisions in a warped manner to imply that the fundamental rights and freedoms include the right to kill, torture, and loot people's property. I have said before, we are aware as government that we have a constitution, a very, very solid constitution, especially on the Bill of Rights. But we are also aware that constitution is carefully worded to allow the exercise of those rights within the law and in a situation of peace and law and order. Started at the national level. That culture has now percolated to the countryside, to lower levels, to low-ranking politicians, and in the period under review, we have witnessed certain behavior, if not curtailed, will make our country break down its long tradition of law and order and the rule of law. Last month, people, citizens, who had what I consider very genuine grievances against security agencies, decided they would storm the Wajir police station and try to overrun it, simply because they are aggrieved. And as I have said, I think the complaints were justified. Last week, citizens who, in my view, appear to have some grievances which appear genuine, Kericho and Bomet. What are they doing? Attacking police officers, burning police vehicles, burning tea-picking equipment, looting shops. When you ask, you're told, we have a freedom to protest and air our grievances. I have just returned from Isibania, where over the weekend, last weekend, a group of hundreds of heavily armed civilians carrying crude weapons, including stones, axes, and all manner of crude weapons, stormed Isibania police station. Again, on the basis of what appeared to be very genuine grievances. Highly organized, highly facilitated group of civilians and citizens attacked a police station, attempted to overrun the police station, attempted to break into the armory and steal firearms, attempted to free persons who were in lawful custody. I am from that border town now this morning, and I have made it very clear that first we will take accountability as security agencies, that when we do not deliver our services or some of our officers are engaged in corruption or they are engaged in harassing wananchi, we are going to take action against those officers. And I have said to the community there and all other affected areas where these grievances are emerging, I have said this government will side with the public, even when public officers appear to have violated their oath of office and broken the law. We will side with the public. And we are willing, the government will part ways with any public officer who misuses their authority for the sake of our country. And going forward, it will not be enough to transfer public officers whose conduct has clearly gone outside the services they are going to provide, and the public confidence has been lost, because transferring such an officer is transferring a problem from one place in this country to another place in this country. So we'll find ways of dealing with that. But I have made it very clear today, and I repeat here, it doesn't matter the nature of the grievances we may have. We must decide as a country to resolve our grievances, be they political, historical, security grievances, administrative grievances. We must resolve them within the law, peacefully, and within the structures established under our Constitution and the laws of our country. We will not allow members of the public to use the excuse that they are aggrieved to storm security facilities and try to undermine the facilities that differentiate our country from countries which are not run on the basis of rule of law, peace, and order. Many countries in Africa have disintegrated into violence. And you know it starts like that. You are aggrieved somewhere, you attack a police station, you take their arms, you free people who are in custody, you have a problem with an officer, you go and hurt them or kill them. We cannot go that route. Any member of the public who tries to access or violate the integrity of a protected area or a security facility will be dealt with in a very, very firm and final manner. We'll apply the Constitution, we'll apply the law of our country, and we'll apply common sense. That behavior must stop. If you have grievances, let's resolve our grievances, air your grievances. If the OCS cannot listen to you, call the DIG. If the DIG can't listen to you, look for the minister. If the minister doesn't listen to you, look for the deputy president, look for the president. Look, let's find ways of having government attend to our problems. Please, fellow Kenyans, nobody in their right mind should think of trying to forcibly enter a protected area because it is against the Constitution of our country, and we will not tolerate that behavior. During the period under review, we have also established, we have perhaps a final priority area of our national security, and that is climate change, which appears an environmental issue. But many of the problems we are grappling with security-wise, including banditry, are as a result of conflicts and irregular movements of people from habitual places of residence, and this is because of the climate change. So we are mainstreaming climate change into our national security priorities. Having said that, allow me to say this in a few minutes, and then I finish. Other than mapping out that assessment, we also want to admit that we have had setbacks, even as we try to reduce the incidence of crime, deal with banditry, the fight against terror, illicit drugs, violent extremism. But we have also had setbacks. I'll just isolate 4. One, for me, one of the biggest blots on our performance as a country and our security agencies is the unfolding matter of the Shakahola Forest Massacre. For many years to come, I don't think we'll ever escape the blame, and I don't think we'll get the right words to explain how Shakahola happened, and especially how it happened in the manner in which it is unfolding. For me, the least that we can do is to make sure that it gives us enough lessons to make sure that it's never happened again. Setback number 2. We have done our own assessment during the period under review on our performance and service delivery as a ministry, in all the state departments, in all the agencies in this ministry. And that review was done objectively, using experts. And the feedback we have got is not very good. The feedback we have got is that many public officers do not enjoy the confidence of the public for one reason or the other, including corruption in some of our agencies. So I want to say that's a huge setback, and in the months ahead, we must look at how to win the confidence and the trust of the people of Kenya. All our agencies, all our 3 state departments, we are not doing very well in terms of confidence levels in our service delivery. The old matter of corruption also came out very strongly, that some of our officers are engaged not only with the theft of public funds, but also with taking bribes from wananchi to induce them to offer services. Again, all the agencies, all the state departments are implicated. And I don't think it is too much to ask. If you are a public officer and for you to give service, maybe you are a chief, or you are a deputy county commissioner, or you are a police officer, and for you to serve a Kenyan, you require a bribe. Please look for something else to do. Because, truth be told, we are not looking very good. And it is not all officers, just a few people whose culture has destroyed this confidence of the public. So that issue of corruption and the diminishing public confidence is something that we want to work on, and we will be reporting progress in our next public accountability statement. And finally, organizational culture. The feedback we have got from our survey is that our work ethics, our organizational culture, our engagement with the public, matters corruption aside, is not as good. No, it's about culture and organization behavior. So we are going again to be looking for reforms around those things so that we address the setbacks. Lastly, in 2 minutes, I want to summarize some of the reform areas that we are looking at in the months ahead. Of course, we are waiting for the task force on the reforms, terms and conditions of work in the Kenya National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service. They were supposed to finish their work end of this month. They have requested for a final extension. And we have made it very clear that the government will not give them any further extension beyond 30th of June. They must have finished their work and handed over the report to the president, because we need closure on this matter. We are looking at some of the things I've shared about culture and organization change, improving career progression of our public officers in different agencies. We are looking at digitization of all our services in line with the government policy of automating and digitizing service delivery. We are also looking at decongesting prisons, and we have given ourselves a target that we will reduce decongest prisons by several ways. Of course, we'll utilize the constitutional route of the power of mercy. We will also use the CSO judge to ensure that petty offenders can be given suspended sentences, and also some of the remandees on petty offenses that do not harm society do not have to stay in prison. Over half, more than half, nearly 60% of the inmates are remandees and are involved in petty offenses. So we have to decongest our prison facilities by half within the next 1 year. We will improve, of course, service delivery in other areas. Within the prisons, we have also initiated a program of dignifying prisoners who are serving their sentences there to be able to rehabilitate and reintegrate them. And we have come up with a policy of not only improving the physical infrastructure in our correctional services, facilities, but also we have come with a special program of 1 prisoner, 1 bed, 1 mattress as a way of dignifying our prisoners, even as we look towards rehabilitating them. We'll modernize the prison enterprise workshop. We'll mechanize the Kenya prison farms. We'll modernize our probation and aftercare services department, which is not doing very well at the moment. We will bring down crime statistics. We will bring reforms within national government administration cadres, the Ngao cadres. We will provide insurance cover to our National Police Service, and so on and so on. Before I end my remarks, we also have another setback which has affected us during this period under review, and that has to do with our delivery of service with regard to issuance of the Kenya passport. During my last accountability statement, I did promise that we will be reforming that department, and the issuance of passports is one of our targets, to multiply Kenya passport holders from the current 3.5 to 10 million holders in 5 years. However, we are not doing well because of 3 things. One, we had a small problem of pending bills incurred under the previous administration, which we had to resolve. Two, our passport printer broke down a few weeks ago. And three, based on the very candid assessment which we have done internally, even without the knowledge of our officers, the feedback we are getting is that many of our officers are asking for bribes to provide Kenyans with passports in the wake of the unavailability of adequate stocks of booklets and the breakdown of the printer. I report that until now, we have a huge backlog of passport applicants, approximately 42,000, some of whom have waited for several months. We have taken urgent remedial measures to correct that problem. I plead for patience, and within 7 days, we will restore the broken equipment, and we already have stocks that arrived on Friday, which can help us clear the backlog and also help us with the normal ongoing applications. Because the backlog is 42,000, and we already have in our possession in excess of 60,000 booklets. So for that backlog, we require for patience as we acquire the printing equipment, because the booklets are printed, but then we have our own printing to customize those booklets to individual holders. That is the equipment that is broken. We have taken measures to restore the production chain in the next 5, at most 7 days. And I want to pledge on behalf of my colleagues in the ministry that we will clear all the backlog of passports in the next 21 days. And from that date, we will make sure that anybody who applies for a new passport must get it within 7 days, and if it is classified as an urgent or emergency application, must get that passport within 24 hours. In the meantime, we will make far-reaching administrative changes within the Department of Immigration and make sure that we make it impossible for any person to ask for a bribe from a Kenyan to provide passport services. Any person within our officers who is giving government a bad name will just treat you as a criminal. And so in my many responsibilities, I am going to supervise that exercise myself, so that the things I have promised here, I don't come here in October to tell you the situation is worse. We will clear that backlog in 21 days. How we do it, we have to figure out. Once the backlog is cleared, any Kenyan from any part of the country who applies for a passport must get it in 7 days. If it is a medical educational or other emergency application that has clear deadlines, that passport must be produced and given to the applicant within 24 hours. Nataka nichukue nafasi hii kuwashukuru sana. Asanteni sana. Kama mlivyosikia, tunajaribu, lakini hizi kazi ni mingi. These officers you see here are the ones who have helped me write the story. If anything good has happened, it is these officers plus thousands of other officers who are not here. They are the ones who have written the story. Mine is to read the story. So I thank the PSs, very hard-working PSs, principal administrative secretaries, senior officers, the leadership of the National Police Service, the Kenya Prison Service, doing a wonderful job. And I want to promise the people of Kenya, we'll make Kenya a safe country. And once Kenya becomes a safe country, the economic struggles we are having, the bottlenecks in unleashing our country's potential to make it an inclusive and prosperous society for all will be possible once we unlock the security matters. I'll take only one question. Because I have spoken for long, 2 questions. Because my colleagues here have also stood for a very long time. Afadhali mimi nilikuwa naongea. Yes, go in. I'll take 3 questions.
Good evening, Waziri.
Yes.
As you said, I'm Chemutai Goin from Citizen TV. I have 2 brief questions. You have addressed the issue of cultural extremism. And one of the issues that we've seen and had utterances made by yourself as the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, is that there are certain individuals that are funding the resurgence of the outlawed Mungiki sect. And one of the persons mentioned is the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. First, have there been links that you've identified as the people in charge of the country's security of his involvement in the sort of resurgence of Mungiki, and what evidence or what are you doing about this? And 2, still on that bit of cultural extremism and possibly actually political, there was a raid at the Northlands property that is associated with the family of the former president. Have investigations into what transpired there commenced? What evidence do you have, or what is the status of investigations? Have arrests been made? Thank you.
Shall I answer those ones first? It will take 1 minute to answer them. The first one is whether there is any evidence leading the former president to crime. I cannot comment on that. I'll respond by saying as follows: that any person who is involved in encouraging crime, doesn't matter their rank in society, they have a debt with me and my officers. On the second one of the attack on Northlands, what happened in Northlands? It's a serious crime. And I want to report, yes, we have undertaken investigations and we will be arraigning some suspects very soon. It has taken a bit of time because of the politicization around it. And I have said to you, dear Kenyans, we don't want to politicize national security. Any person who is involved in crime, it doesn't matter their political affiliation. Some of the people, political leaders who have been funding the violent attacks on property and police officers in Kericho and Bomet are Kenya Kwanza of politicians, and they'll have to be arrested. You know, once we conclude investigation, we arrest them. So let's not politicize this thing. But I don't think it is in my space to comment about the former president of Kenya. Yes. Musaidia huyo. Any of you, both of you, any of you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Bwana Waziri. I'm Lawrence Nyando from Radio Omini. You've talked about the issue of guns to do with the people, especially the bandits. Will you mind to tell us, since February 6th, when you last briefed us, has the ministry found out the loopholes that these people, especially the bandits and other Kenyans, acquire illegal firearms? And if they have found out the loopholes, what steps are they taking so that we can be able to curb the ownership of illegal firearms in the country, because it's also a very big threat in the society of Kenya? Secondly, when you talk about the issue that has happened in Wajir and also Hispania, you talk that the citizens had justified grievances. So do you take it, can we take it maybe as the police officers or maybe the security agents in that area, they failed in their service delivery, that's why the citizens took the mandate to attack the police station and do that?
Let me answer those two. Yes, we have made a lot of progress in terms of finding where illicit arms have been sourced from and where they have been going. It's not in my place to say what steps we have taken. I just want to promise results. First, we are going to mop out all the illegal arms in that region. And we are going to have a huge ceremony here in Nairobi where we'll destroy all those arms. Many arms, because they are there. And there's a reason why we are taking time before we start visiting every home and recovering those arms for strategic reasons. So allow me to leave it at that. With regard to Isebani, part of the problem is a problem caused by public officials, including police officers and other agencies. It's a complicated matter because that is a border town. We have had incidents there, even beyond the current incident that triggered the riots last week. There were other cases of crime, murder, extortion, trafficking in narcotics around that area, and ethanol illegally entering the country around that area. And part of the problem of that breakdown in service delivery is by public officials. And the government, therefore, as I have said earlier, will remove all the officers there, and as we transport them out of Isebania, we may not be taking them to new stations for the reasons which I said earlier. Because taking them to new stations is transferring a problem to another part of the country which equally deserves good services. So I agree. And it's not just police officers, even customs officers, immigration officers. And you know, for the people to be angry enough to attack a security facility, definitely there must have been grievances. But on the other hand, that is not the way to resolve grievances. Nobody in Kenya should ever dream or think ever again of attacking a police station or a security facility. Maybe two more. We can't stay here forever.
Asante Bwana Waziri. Jina langu ni Kimani Ngunjiri kutoka Kameme TV. Na ningependa kuuliza swali kutokana na lile jambo ambalo umelizungumzia linahusiana na masuala ya maandamano ambayo yamekuwa yakifanyika hapa nchini, na hasa miezi kadhaa ambayo tumeshuhudia maandamano ya upinzani, na kuna vifo ambavyo vilitokea wakati ule ambavyo maafisa walitajwa. Kuna baadhi ya maafisa ambao walihusishwa na vile vifo. Sijui kama waziri wa usalama wa ndani umefanya nini ili kuhakikisha ya kwamba wale ambao walitajwa wamewajibika?
Naomba niseme hivi, all those officers who were mentioned in terms of misusing firearms or excessive use of force have been investigated, and the reports have been made to the prosecuting authorities. A few are still outstanding. Some of the investigations were done by our internal affairs unit, the National Police Service. Others are being undertaken by the oversight agency of the National Police Service, which is the Independent Police Oversight Authority, on all the issues where these matters have arisen, including Isebania. So some are ongoing, and the government policy is that any police officer or any security officer who misuses their firearms outside the law is on their own, and it is them and the law, and we will not interfere either with the work of IPOA, with the work of other investigative agencies, where there are clear circumstances of misuse of firearms or unlawful use of firearms in demonstrations or in other circumstances. But at the same time, the government of Kenya will protect and stand behind every security officer who uses their firearms within the Constitution and the law to defend life in the manner in which the Constitution, the law, and the standing orders of the National Police Service permit. And that's why, at the risk of repeating myself, any Kenyan who think they can attack a police station and attack an armory are mistaken. And all the leaders who are facilitating Kenyans to run down our country and take it through a slippery path of lawlessness will arrest you, will charge you, whether you are in Kenya Kwanza or Azimio or you have no party.
Thank you. It's a real fight here. My name is Brian Mushiri from NTV. First question, the issue on Dadaab. Yesterday, we reported about 1,200 cases of cholera in Dadaab. Is the ministry aware of this? Are you in conversations with the Ministry of Health? And then the long-run discussion about Dadaab, what's going to be the end story in Dadaab under this administration? Then the issue on Shakahola, the commission on inquiry. We saw the court regard it unconstitutional. You've mentioned it in your statement. Maybe will you go ahead to appeal? What is the situation and position on that? Thank you.
Very quickly, and that should be the last question. We've had challenges with an outbreak of contagious diseases and communicable diseases in Dadaab. And we are working very hard to make sure that that situation is contained. With regard to long-term solutions to the refugee matter, encampment, and all the issues around it, I'll reserve that to the pronouncements that we will make on 20th of June, which is the World Refugee Day. Some will be made on that day, but going forward, we have decided as a country, we must face the challenge of long-term refugees in our country. Foreign nationals who have found refuge in this country under international law and the hospitality of the people of Kenya. They have lived for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. We must find a way of handling that situation because we cannot have refugees for a century. One way or the other, we will be making very bold policy decisions, and those ones will be announced on 20th June. Finally, on the commission of inquiry, that matter is before court. I cannot comment about it, but the government stands with every action taken. The action taken, including the establishment of the commission of inquiry, was taken within the law and in the national interest. Thank you. Kwaherini, mbarikiwe. Became longer than I thought.